Up next, the Type 9 shuttle from Voyager. Well, hey guys, as you can see, the build that I'll be talking about is well underway here on my workbench, but I thought I would add in this edit to share with you a couple of fun projects that I've worked on here that I did not create a video of. The first of which is something called a Sprayser. This was something that was invented and designed by a gentleman named Kurt Turner, and I first came across this on a Facebook page called Section 31 Star Trek Prop Collectors. And it's an ingenious design that fits on top of a specific garden hose nozzle, and when you hook it up to a water hose, it sprays water out of the tip here. Take a look at the video. So this is a 3D printed piece, and the files are available for free at printables.com. And he also, by the way, has a link to a video that shows you how everything gets assembled, and I'll post a link to that video below. If you don't have a printer, Mr. Turner does have some kits for sale that include all the pieces to put it together, and I believe also includes a nozzle. I'm not sure, but you'll have to contact him. Again, I'll post links on how to get a hold of him through Messenger on Facebook. Now, the nozzle you can buy at Amazon. I think this was like $11. It's made by Orbit. It's called a Pro Flow, and what you have to do is cut away the rubber that you see here, as well as take off this end piece. Not very difficult to do, but if you'd like, again, to see how that's done, take a look at the link for the video. But very fun piece to have in your collection. And he also includes, by the way, files for a stand, and the stand has the threads there that you can simply just screw the piece onto. And if you want to display it like that in your collection, you can do so just by putting it onto the stand. Alright, the other thing I want to share with you is a sculpt of Shultz from Hogan's Heroes. This is something that I happened to pick up at the very end of Wonderfest last year. There's a certain table that has all these sculpts on it, and the guy who sculpted this is the same guy who sold the piece. This, I thought, when looking at it unpainted, bore a pretty good resemblance to John Banner, and sure enough, once you paint it, he really did a good job capturing the likeness of the character. The decals that you see here were provided, or at least the designs were provided by Joe Hudson. I just shrank them down to the appropriate sizes there, and yeah, I thought this was really a fun piece to paint. So I think I'll be taking this with me to Wonderfest since it's such a unique sculpt. That'll be fun to display there. Alright, so there you go. A couple of fun projects that I worked on. If you have any questions, feel free to contact me or list a comment down below. And so now that that's done, let's move on to our build. Well, hey guys, and welcome back to another Innocent Mother. I'm ready to start my build of the Type 9 Speedboat Shuttle from Star Trek Voyager. This model is produced by Cozmic Scale Models and is 1/24th in scale. I have to say this is one of my favorite shuttlecraft designs. As you know, Voyager itself represented a bit of a departure from some of the typical ship designs we'd seen on Star Trek. It was a much sleeker vessel, and this particular shuttlecraft, I think, complements and reflects those aesthetics pretty well. Now, this is not the first time I've actually built a Type 9 shuttle. Let me show you one that I built many years ago. Back in the early 2000s, Federation Models had quite a few Star Trek designs available on their website, and the Type 9 shuttle was one of them. This was a resin cast model. Actually, the body itself was hollow, although the nacelles were solid, so it wasn't possible to light this particular model, but it was a pretty good replica of the shuttlecraft. Now, I built a couple of those, and I sold both of those online. Back then, I was actually building a number of these kits and selling them online. I wish I had kept one of them for my collection, so I was really happy to see that Cozmic Scale Models came out with their version. Now, this model, of course, is set up for lighting, and the few builds I've seen online, including Lou Dalmaso's, are the shuttlecraft put onto a display base with it fully lit. However, what I plan to do now is to make a diorama. Keith was kind enough to provide a couple other items here, including a 1/24 scale Lacar's workstation, and this actually is also set up for lighting. And he actually provided a few figures. I have one of 7, and I've got a Harry Kim figure, a Kess figure, and I also have a Neelix figure. And now those are the only figures that I initially started with here. But I want to share these special figures here with you. So these are designed now by modeler Fred Lewis. He has been sending me things on occasion because he's been working on his skills with designing things for 3D printing. And just check these figures out. They are beautifully designed. You can see B'Elanna Torres here. Not only does the figure have really good likeness to her, but look at the uniform and the details that you see there, as well as a nice, good dynamic pose. Now he's created these other two figures. One is in a kneeling position, and you can see how this could be positioned right next to the shuttle, whether next to a nacelle or someplace on the shuttle where she's taking a look at something. And then this figure here is one he's created of an engineering personnel or technician who is holding a pad there. Now the uniforms, you'll notice, are designed in the same fashion as the typical Voyager jumpsuit, but he did make some modifications so that they look more technical and more practical, for that matter, for someone who'd be working in engineering or doing work around a ship like this. Now let me show you one other special figure here. This one was designed in my likeness. Take a look. So he's designed this figure holding a pad, but you can see his facial features look a lot like me. And so this is really cool. I'll be able to include myself in this diorama scene. And yeah, it's a little bit weird seeing yourself designed as a 3D printed figure. He also designed a bust. Let me just share that with you. But I want to send a big thank you to Fred for providing these great figures. He's been doing some fantastic work with expanding his skill sets with designing things for 3D printing. He has actually created this bust of Sulu. Let me show you this one as well. And he'll be sending another one of Christopher Lloyd as the Klingon from Star Trek 3 that I'll share with you eventually here on the channel. Well, I'm ready to begin here, but before I do so, just a couple of comments. After giving it much thought, I've decided to not light up the nacelles. As nice as the model looks lit up that way, it just doesn't go with the scene I'm trying to create. You just wouldn't have, I'm planning to have people standing around the shuttle working on it, and you just wouldn't have the engines activated in that type of situation. So considering I would rarely turn them on, for that reason, I just am going to save myself the trouble and not bother with that. I do plan on lighting the interior, particularly the cockpit, and I say that because I have another idea in mind that I'm kicking around for the rear or the aft section of the ship, or the aft section of that compartment. I just got to work a couple things out, and we'll see how that goes. But I'll give you more details about that in part 2, which brings me to my next point. This build is going to be divided into 2 parts. This first part here is going to be focused on working on the exterior and detailing all of that and painting. And then part 2 will include painting the interior and working on lighting, as well as completing the display base. All right, let's go ahead and get started. Well, before doing anything else, I needed to settle on the shuttle's base color. And according to Rick Sternbach, who designed the ship, it was meant to be a warm gray. That immediately reminded me of the old Tester's camouflage gray I used years ago on my X-Wing fighters, though for this build, I felt it needed to be a bit lighter. So I mixed my own colors, starting with Americana's Whitewash, and added Craftsmart's Gray, which has a warmer tone. The mix was roughly 85% white to 15% gray, and to warm it up just a little more, I added a couple drops of Americana's Fawn. Now for this project, I knew I'd be mixing my own paints, so I decided to use a revised version of this do-it-yourself thinner, and I'll include the recipe along with a link to the video that explains how to make it. It's been working really well, and I plan to keep using it instead of the more expensive thinners I've relied on in the past. So after testing the color and feeling good about it, I started painting the exterior, beginning with the nacelles. Next came the tan-colored trim. At first I attempted to mix my own color, but it came out too yellow, so after checking with Lou Dalmaso, I followed his lead and used buff from Tamiya, color XF57, which will also be used for the interior of the shuttle. Now for this build, I am using Lou Dalmaso's paint masks, and unfortunately the mask for the trim around the windows wasn't quite an exact fit. So I ended up having to use masking tape for the perimeter, while still using the supplied mask for the larger panel toward the rear. The good news is that the masks for the panels along the aft section of the shuttle work perfectly. Now if you look at this image from the instructions, which I've also seen in a few reference photos online, you can see the shuttle has some subtle panel lines, and I thought that detail added a lot of dimension, so I decided to replicate it on the model. To do that, I mixed a few drops of Vallejo Neutral Gray into my base color to create a slightly darker shade. Then, using my Galeri Mobius 0.2mm airbrush, I lightly misted the paint along the edge of masking tape, and that creates a soft, feathered look as you move away from the front edge of the panel. And here's how the nacelles look once that step was finished. The same technique was used on the rest of the exterior. And this is how it looks when it's all completed. Well, what's next is to apply a gloss coat to these parts, because I do want to do a light wash to enhance the engraved panel lines. Well, prior to applying a gloss coat, I needed to paint up a few more details, and the one thing I found helpful was using MIG Ammo's Ultra Masking Fluid. This is the first time I've used this product, although I have used a couple of other brands of masking fluid. I have to say this one has got to be the best so far. It's a little thicker, has a dark blue color making it easier to see, dries faster, and is easier to take off. Now after painting, I did apply a gloss coat and moved on to enhancing the panel lines. Now at first, I used Tamiya's black panel line accent color, but it came out way too dark for my taste. So I had to go back and fill in those black lines with my base color. I just watered that down and applied it the same way I applied that black panel line color. And I made a lighter wash using Craftsmart's Gray and Americana's Umber, thinned it down with the do-it-yourself thinner, and I dipped my brush into a little bit of Palmolive dishwashing liquid to add that into the mix. And here's some video of me applying the wash. The food dehydrator was helpful to speed up the drying process, and it easily came off with a damp cloth. Now you might not be able to tell in the picture, but I was more satisfied with the final effect as it came out a lot softer than the Tamiya panel line color. Well, before assembling the nacelles, I wanted to share something with you. There's one part of this build that early on was kind of stressing me out because I was watching Lou Dalmaso's video about this, and he made mention that it was a challenge to fit the grill into this here. And a couple reasons. One is that, first of all, this is a single molded piece. So unlike, say, the nacelle to the runabout that comes in two halves, you can actually fit the grill into place and then put the next half on top of that and glue them together. Now, of course, the downside to that is you have a seam to have to address. So in this here, we don't have to worry about that. But that does mean you have to fit everything through this opening that they've provided here. And at least for me, I can fit my fingers through, so I can press the grill into place here. But I noticed that when I did that, the front section or the front piece of the grill was not fitting into place very well. And the way to make that fit better is to just sand away this little ledge that they've got along here. And when you do that, it's a much better fit. Alright, let me take a second just to get you caught up on the nacelles. You can see I have the Bassard collectors now glued in place. Just have it set up here so that we can give this some time to cure properly. And I wanted just to take a minute to talk about the grill. That you see here is a copper color. Now, in pictures that I've seen of next generation models or Voyager models unlit, the grills look like a copper color. You can see in this picture what I'm referring to. And I was reminded of this when watching a build of the Speedboat Shuttle on a YouTube channel called Retrek Scale Models. And I really loved the way it turned out. He suggested using this metallic brown color from Tamiya because it looks more copper than the Tamiya copper color, according to him. And you can see I'm airbrushing it here to both sides. And I really do love the way the color comes out. Now it's interesting that he actually lit up his nacelles, and through this copper color you could still see the nacelle glowing blue. So that's pretty neat. Alright, well, since I am not lighting up the nacelles, I don't have to worry about light blocking or any of those steps. So I'm just going to go ahead and let this set as I mentioned, and then we'll move on with assembling the rest of it. Okay, so these are the completed nacelles, and the only thing left to do is to glue on the top part. Now this part does have two running lights, and since I'm not going to be lighting them, I didn't want just empty holes, so I just took Elmer's glue and filled in each one. The other piece that had to be glued in are the yellow side pieces here, which were easy to put into place. And one other thing I needed to do was to fill in the seam here, and for this I just used super glue. I just applied super glue to the seam and allowed that to dry, then used sandpaper to smooth it over. After reapplying the base color, I decided to mask that off and apply the shading for a panel line, which I thought was a nice touch. And by the way, one other detail I wanted to share with you here, the model does not come with a decal for this design here. This is the area in front of the main deflector. You do have to mask that off, which wasn't too hard to do with Tamiya masking tape. And for the color, I used a mix of this Canyon Orange and Vallejo's Tierra Earth. Alright guys, well that's going to do it for part one. Let's just take a look at what I've done here so far. I like the way the color turned out. I'm very happy with the paneling. Just taking another look at the model here, they've done a beautiful job designing the kit. They've included a lot of accurate detailing, and I just know it's going to make a great looking replica of the Speedboat Type 9 shuttle. Now, of course, if you have any questions of what I've done so far, feel free to leave a comment down below or email me at innershuttlemodeler@gmail.com. So coming up in part two, as mentioned earlier in the video, it's all going to be about the interior, painting, detailing, and lighting, and then completing the display base. I'm going to let you in on something I've decided on doing. I'm going to be cutting open the back side of the compartment here. I just think it would make a much more interesting diorama if we can open it up. If you take a look at this picture, at the top portion of the hatch flips way open like that, while the bottom no doubt serves as the ramp to step on. So to cut this open, I'm going to be using a new tool, and that's this magic cutter. It's an ultrasonic knife I got for Christmas. I've already used it a couple of times. I used it most recently for cutting off those rubber pieces on the garden nozzle for the Sprayser, and it made the job super easy. It's made to cut through a lot of different materials, including resin pieces like we have here. So I definitely look forward to finishing the build. Thanks again for watching, you guys, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care.